coast to coast. And here's we got another.
This isn't damage control, it's diva-level dominance. Sophie Cunningham turned cancel culture into comedy gold. And you won't believe how I need to talk about this right here. They started a petition to ban her, as if she were some sort of Marvel villain. Her response, to put it simply, wasn't an apology. Rather, it was a highlight reel with extra sauce. If you were expecting her to cry, think again. She brought a microphone drop so loud that it reverberated throughout the W. I'm serious about player safety, so don't worry. Neither JC nor Marine will make the All-Star team. The only player on the Dallas Wings who will make the All-Star team is Paige Becker. She saw the petition, laughed mid-lunge, and retweeted it as if it were fan mail because Sophie Cunningham isn't just unbothered, but they tried to portray her as the antagonist in some overhyped basketball soap opera. And she leaned in with the kind of energy that says, you rang. This isn't a redemption arc. This is full-blown retaliation, but with glitter and a crossover all-star breaking Indiana. I'm like, dude, DJ Jane Harrington needs to work her way back into the starting lineup for the worst team in the WNBA before she even considers being an all-star this year. And that tweet, oh, she didn't just retweet it, she blessed it like a royal decree from the Queen of Petty Land. It was the digital equivalent of her cracking her knuckles and saying, let's dance. Because if you thought Sophie Cunningham would crumble under the pressure of public outrage, you must be new here. Instead, she retaliates with tempo, fire, and a well-placed side eye. Now that everyone knows who she is, everyone wants a piece of. The reason Sophie Cunningham's jersey is the best-selling one in the WNBA is because it outsold that of Caitlin Clark, the most popular woman in the league's history. The reason for this is that Sophie Cunningham stood up for Caitlin Clark, and the petition is a masterpiece of pearl-clutching hysteria, with fans screaming for bans like it's a dystopian version of American Idol, except instead of singing, you get kicked off for being too self-assured. People tend to forget that when she gets physical, it's almost always because someone else got messy first. She's not throwing the first punch. Instead, she's just returning the favor with interest and a little extra spice. I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I'm just saying that Sophie Cunningham stood on business to all these damn petitions and all these little stupid things they're trying to do, these little freaking fines we don't care about. None of it. Now, as Rachel stated, your boy John Liquid, I'm not endorsing any violence at all, but I can tell you that Sophie Cunningham stood her ground and did the right thing. Because if you mess with her teammates, Sophie will go all medieval and attack you like a human freight train driven by loyalty and rage. It's not about the rules, it's about family. The league can argue about the rules all day long, but when someone attacks her girls, Sophie doesn't ask. Sophie Cunningham is the WNBA's most unexpected fan favorite, not for the fever dream brigade who cling to Caitlin Clark like she's a one-woman revolution, but for everyone else, Sophie is the anti-hero we didn't know we needed. She has the emotional range of a woman who's had enough, the aggression of a linebacker, and the Twitter skill of a meme lord. It's a Cinderella story, except that Cinderella's wearing sneakers, body-checking defenders, and calling out hypocrisy mid-aim because they wanted her silenced. Instead, she became a headline machine with a highlight reel full of vengeance. She lashed out not because she was angry, but because she'd grown tired of the story for months, watching from the sidelines as her teammate Caitlin is thrown to the wolves. Every move she makes is scrutinized, every bump is called a conspiracy, and now everyone wants a piece of Sophie Cunningham. Her jersey is the WNBA's best-selling jersey, and it is sold out, exceeded the most popular woman in WNBA history, Caitlin Clark, and her jersey was surpassed by Sophie Cunningham. Why? Because Sophie Cunningham stood up for Caitlin Clark. The double standards were practically visible from the arena lights. When Fever players get physical and passionate, it's just basketball, but when Sophie raises her eyebrows or clears space with her shoulder, it becomes a felony, a crisis, and a moment worthy of a petition. Someone please explain how Sheldon lowering her shoulder into Sophie was just. Let's talk about Sheldon for a moment. Sheldon entered with the energy of someone attempting to destroy a brick wall with their torso. Her shoulder wasn't lowered, it was weaponized. Sophie took the hit, blinked once, and reacted the way any respectable enforcer would, with an emotional sledgehammer, because if you're going to test her balance, don't cry foul when she resets the scale. It's not aggression, it's just bad acting. But here's the real deal. Sophie Cunningham, also known as the Enforcer and Caitlin Clark's bodyguard, defended the face of basketball today. Sophie never wanted to be the league's rebel sweetheart. All she wanted was some consistency, a little fairness, perhaps a rule book that applies to everyone equally instead of being changed every night based on jersey color and Twitter trends. However, the moment she realized the bullies weren't going away, she made the decision to fight back, and not just on the court. In addition to realizing that you wouldn't want to fight Sophie Cunningham after winning this headlock off court, America was in love. The retweet was just the beginning, as she has since transformed her social media feed into a carefully curated exhibit of shade clapbacks, a gallery, emojis, and more. She is Picasso, and it's more than just a feed, it's a mood board for everyone who has ever been wrongfully branded the villain when they were just aggressively setting boundaries, and it's working. People are wearing her jersey, stitching her plays into TikToks, and defending her as if she's the last hope for basketball integrity. She's not just a player anymore, she's a vibe, the kind of athlete who doesn't need a public relations team to deal with criticism, because she is the one who is bringing the double standards into the public eye and emotionally dumping on them with receipts, while the haters are going crazy because they don't know how to deal with a woman who refuses to back down. The more noise they make, the louder her cheers get. And every video of her retaliation gets reposted like a trailer for the Atomic Blonde sequel. Every game is now a battle between those who are cheering for justice and those who are still holding their pearls because someone played defense with passion. I'm sorry, bro. What did Rachel Dementa say about this? If the referees don't do their jobs, the players will have to. When Caitlin took hits, someone spoke up and stepped up to defend her people. She saw the whispers, the cheap shots, the subtle fouls that no one wanted to call, and said, not on my watch. And yes, maybe it got physical, maybe she sent a message, but that message was loud and clear. You can push us, but we push back harder. The enforcers themselves, the referees, failed to do their job, and the game was chippy from the start. Become the WNBA's new symbol of unrepentant power, not because she asked for it, but because she earned it on the court with every shoulder check and sarcastic tweet. She didn't start the fire, but she certainly learned how to use it. Because you can't cancel someone who has already profited from their villain arc, Sophie leaned in and made it fashionable, and now the very people who wanted her gone must watch her rise in the ranks, not just as a player, but as a phenomenon. I don't understand how she doesn't have 1 million followers or more by now. I've never really had an opinion on the NBA or WNBA because I've never cared to watch it. It's always been boring. Since Caitlin Clark, it's been interesting to watch. And now Sophie Cunningham doesn't play about her teammates, these girls. She's not just surviving the noise, she's conducting the orchestra, like digital tears, because the more they protest, the more power she gathers. As the smoke from the petition bonfire began to clear, the main event arrived. Sheldon thundering towards Sophie like a linebacker chasing a snack. Sophie had learned the ancient art of momentum judo, so she didn't flop. Instead, she strategically absorbed Sheldon's overcooked shoulder like a seasoned chaos connoisseur, seeing that runaway train coming and winning. She's also a black belt. What are you going to do about it? Go ahead, girl, everyone, and follow Sophie. Maybe one day I'll get to come watch him. The referee stood there blinking like deer who just realized the headlights were the rule book they forgot to read, because if common sense had been in play, whistles would have sounded like a marching band on caffeine, but instead they cricketed a whole silent film from the officiating crew. You know what? Let's make this theatrical. Boom, down she goes. Controlled demolition. Graceful, iconic basketball's version of a trust fall with zero trust. Let's talk about the referees, those glorified traffic cones and stripes who watched Sheldon plow through Sophie and thought, seems fine. Their job was to de-escalate. But instead, they brought folding chairs to the WWE match and failed to notice which team was being jumped. Mayberry poked Sophie in the eye with a delicacy that looked like someone trying to perform laser surgery while blindfolded. And there were no whistles, no consequences, not even a timeout for poor manners. It was all game, everyone, as Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were checked. We wanted someone like Sophie Cunningham to say, I'm tired of this. I'm trying to step up. It's time to step up. We're not going to get punked anymore. We're not going to be pushed around anymore. We're not going to be treated like a little sister anymore. We're not going to be treated like a little brother anymore. Because the Indiana Fever were getting punked during the game. And the referees allowed this physical style of basketball to go on and on and on and on. You know what? We're not going to start the fight, but we damn sure will finish it, they will begin to declare. Sophie entered the room, but the shove, not the courteous kind, came from two different directions. It was like a clumsy physics experiment gone wrong, and nothing happened. Natata Mabry was still playing, and Sheldon was free to continue her personal demolition tour, leaving Sophie to fend for herself like the only adult at a middle school food fight. The irony is that the league chose to do their best after the game when Sophie was double tagged like a character in a dystopian dodgeball match. Upgrading the fouls after the game is the sports equivalent of sending thoughts and prayers after a house IRU started. It does nothing, and everyone knows it's what Sophie needed, the impression of, sorry we missed your call after the game. That's right, the magical post-game upgrade, the oopsie. We just watched the footage from 8 different angles and realized, oops, that was bad. It was protection in the moment, but instead she received a crash course on how to not trust officials who treat serious infractions like minor annoyances. The eye poke alone should have caused blood and a technical, but instead it caused yawns. The two-handed shove that followed was a full-body exorcism, and there was still no whistle or flag, just Sophie blinking through her contact lenses and wondering what century the referees were from. Sophie Cunningham stood on business about her dear friend Caitlin Clark, bro, and I can attest to that. Honorable, what she did, bro, that was honorable, and I will always defend this. And then, if you blinked, you missed Mabra's blindside shove, but don't worry, Sophie didn't, and neither did the cameras. It wasn't just dirty, it was cunning, the kind of hit you deliver when you think no one is watching, but everyone is, and the referee still did very little at this point. The only thing being ejected were the fans' hopes